Hello, hello. Welcome to the podcast. Hi, Lisa. How are ya?
Hi, Katie. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm ready for our second day of podcasting together this quarter. Always a pleasure.
Always.
I'm going to jump right in and welcome our guest. Today we have Connie Weissmuller. Welcome, Connie, to the podcast. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
We're so excited to connect and just chat with you about the work you do and about some of your own journey. But before we get started, let our listeners know, what do you do? Who's Connie? Tell us a little bit about the work you do.
Okay. So I am a registered dietitian. I am based in Denver, Colorado. However, I see clients across the country through telehealth. I am also an adjunct professor at Colorado College at the moment, and I've been teaching for 8 years, and I absolutely love it. So I sort of switch my time between teaching and counseling. And, beyond that, I just really happy in Colorado. I love to be outside. I would say I'm not like the most outdoorsy Coloradan, but I'm an outsidey one who loves to hike and one night max of camping. So
I love that rule.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that boundary. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you're clearly in a space that Lisa and I have a lot of care and passion for. So I'm curious, we'll ask sort of the big question around here, which is, what is a belief that you once had that you no longer have that has impacted your life in a meaningful way?
I really love this question, by the way. I think a big one for me is I used to think that I had to rush a lot, like everything was urgent. I mean, I can't tell you how many times my dad, my grandparents were like, slow down. And I was just there doing like way more things than I had to. And in college, I was getting extra internships and trying to network and doing these things. And I, in hindsight, sort of missed some of the moment. And so now I'm a very big believer, thanks to my therapist, that nothing really is urgent, except if, you need to go to the hospital or life or death situation. And that's brought me a lot of peace these days, knowing that I can take my time, and comparing my, chapter 10 to someone's chapter 20. I often do that. And then it makes me think I need to go, go, go. But coming back to that idea that nothing is urgent really has been helpful. It's still hard some days, but I am working on it.
That is so layered. And I have a lot of thoughts, but I want to know, where do you think, I know you mentioned the comparing your journey to someone else's impacts that, but where do you think that urgency and that rush to like go, 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 and it sounds like achieve, where did that come from for you?
Gosh, I was raised by two very successful lawyers, and I think my family, both sides, sort of celebrate achievement, not in a way I really don't think we like shove it in people's faces. But for me, I think I was born a deep feeler and sort of more of an anxious kiddo. And I wanted to please people, my parents, and anyone really. And so I think that gave me this idea of I have to do it now so that people will think I'm smart, or I've achieved a lot, or I can stand up with the best of them type of deal. So I think, I just was, I think it came out of inspiration from my parents and sort of snowballed a tad.
I get that. And I can relate to this idea of rushing and trying to achieve so much. I think the motivation for me was slightly different with my upbringing. I saw my mom just struggle a lot, and she was a single mom with all these kids, and I was like, I do not want this. So for me, I looked for safety in success. I looked for safety in church, religion, and then I looked for safety in success. And it's like, if you just put your head down, work hard, don't look up. Like, I had blinders on, so I can definitely relate to like feeling like I missed out on some things because I was so focused. I feel like my childhood was about how do I become a successful adult? Like that was it. My whole childhood was like, how can I set myself up to be a successful adult? And then you look back and you're like, oh, well, I didn't really do the childhood thing, So
Right.
reparenting myself through parenting my children has been quite the journey. But
Oh my gosh, I bet.
yeah,
Have
it's a
you,
process.
oh, sorry to cut you off. I was just curious if in your adult life you have tried to fit in some more of that like childlike play or wonder that you may have missed out on.
Yeah, well, I mean, just now, probably in the last few years, as becoming more aware that what I did, while it was to save myself, it wasn't necessarily the healthiest route. So being in therapy and, walking away from diet culture, walking away from a lot of the traditional constraints that I had put on myself and the world had put on me. Yeah, now I play a lot. I'm like, I talk to my clients about like, let's just roll on the floor.
Oh,
Like, let's just like shake and sit because as adults, we get away from play. And then if you're like me, you didn't play a whole lot as a kid. So just like getting on the floor, being silly, not taking yourself so serious, not rushing, and it's really hard when it's in your nature to just like go, 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 organize, organize, organize. Here's another spreadsheet. Check this off. The next certificate, the next degree. It's a lot to just like come out of that and just be like, just live and be in the moment for a minute,
yeah.
for a minute. So I'm trying to get back to that. And I do spend a lot of time with my girlfriends. And so that
Oh, good.
takes me to that silly, playful, place as well. So
But
that's
this goes
helpful.
to what we were talking about last night
Mm-hmm.
around, every time we have somebody on the podcast, it's like in my childhood, right? Like I think that like if you're doing work on yourself, it's just inevitable. So it just is part of the deal. But I think this is why I had originally, when I first came in, like when I was going into college, when I was discovering what I was going to study was child development, because I could see where I'm a root person. I'm like, where are the roots?
Yeah.
Where's the roots? And it's like, okay, well, when you're born. And so like the messaging, like we're all saying is like, I found safety this way. I found safety that way. And like, we're all unique and find safety in different ways and all have varying circumstances. So that becomes very difficult to sort of, articulate how it all, like, oh, if we all just did this, follow this formula, that's not really how it works.
No.
No.
But when you think about where we learn about safety, like where we learn about bodies, where we learn about self-trust, where we learn about intuition, where we learn about slowing down, where we learn about turning inward versus achieving outward. One of the things I really try to do in the last couple of years with my kids is, especially my older daughter, she's a very intuitive child. And she'll say things and I'll say, I'm really glad you're listening to yourself. Like what comes up for you?
Yeah.
And it will be in spite of what's going on around her, which is even better.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's what all of this is. Like rather our parents were intentionally doing something or not, there were inherent messages that were given. And I'll give you like this like kind of funny, like not funny, but like this interesting example of when I would be in center-based programs. We would have our director created this whole educational video on how to change a child's diaper.
Okay.
And it was all about body consent. It was all about communicating what you were doing to their body.
Yeah.
And like, it's not that you weren't going to, like if they said, no, you still have to change the diaper, but it was all about communication and just pausing to acknowledge this is a very private experience. And like, this is their body. And like, how can you interact with them through language and through messaging, through diaper changes?
Wow.
And so it was this highlighting moment for me where it was like every interaction and everything that we do, whether we recognize it or not. It's not like you're practicing, okay, time to practice my parenting. It's just like it is what it is. And we receive messages, but they're normalized.
Right.
And so we don't stop to think like, what is that? How am I internalizing that message? And even the other day, my husband was commenting on my younger daughter's strength with her handstand or something. And my older daughter, she can take things personally sometimes. So she didn't interpret his comment as, oh, wow, yeah, she, my little sister's really practicing her handstands. She took it as I'm not good at handstands and that something is wrong with her body. But what happened, I mean, it was not like an intentional malicious thing on my husband's part, but she came to me and she was like, this is what's coming up for me about my body right now. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I can really beat myself up as a parent. So I was like, pause and like, your child feels safe enough to express what's happening for her. And I even think what I would have done in that is I would have probably internalized it and brushed it off and moved on. Yeah. And known that I would internalized it, right? So much of being an adult, I think, is going back and discovering what we observed, what we saw, what we heard, and thousands of different situations, and what we internalized as inherent deficiencies of ours,
right?
And unraveling all.
Right.
Yeah.
It was like a master class.
Sorry. That's real. But that's where we learn it,
Right.
And so, like, that's why I was always so passionate about child development, because I'm like, oh, this is where we learn about our bodies. This is where we learn about how to connect in a meaningful way with peers. Like, this is where we learn where we think we're smart or where we call ourselves dumb. This is where is where we learn this. And then I had children, and then I literally wanted to take a lighter to my degree. Oh my God, there's no way to put this in practice every day. This is insane.
Be exhausting.
I don't know. I think it's just fascinating to always go back and understand where things come from.
Yeah. That's my favorite question to answer in therapy. My therapist will be like, and where do you think that came from? And I'll sit there for like 2 minutes. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I got it.
Whoa. It's like a brain explosion every time. And I enjoy it,
Yeah, I do too. When did you come out of that? I'm sure you're probably still coming out of that, that thought process, but when did you come into the knowing that, like, okay, it is safe and okay to slow down and actually better for me and my life's experiences?
I think it was rather recently. I am only 30, and it sort of happened when I started my own practice and I had space to sit. I wanted to care for myself financially, right, and support myself. And I had always had this sort of dream to sit for a little bit or have an afternoon to take a hike where I didn't have to cram my schedule with a lot of clients. And I had sort of had that, dream throughout grad school and in the very beginning of my career. And I think once it happened, I started having those slow down moments and I started freaking out. And then I started, it was the combination of the space and time and talking about it, in therapy and really sitting in that, where I was like, why do I feel so uncomfortable? And how do I feel less uncomfortable? Because I think it's a bummer that so many of us feel this need to constantly go, go, go. It doesn't allow us to really just look around, no matter if it's look around at all the good stuff or look around at bad stuff too. I think we just think of the next thing rather than the present moment. Yeah.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah.
I did watch something the other day that was talking about the number one predictor of children feeling anxious, and it is rushed parents.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, shit.
Oh, interesting.
I gotta slow it down because I don't know if you're this way, but I'm like, how efficient can I be?
Same.
Which is just,
yes.
And I get high on being efficient. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got 6 things done in 22 minutes. But like, but for what?
Right. Like, what is that?
We think there's a trophy at the end of this. And I
know.
Constantly remind myself, like, they are not giving out trophies for most exhausted mom. Like, most accomplished mother, here she is, mother of the year. That doesn't actually exist. And I feel you with the rushing part. Like, oh my God, I used to stress myself out every school morning.
Yeah.
Cole, do this, repeating myself 1,000 times. And the kids are looking at me like, would this crazy woman shut up? They know not to say it, but they're thinking it. And and I am just like, okay, go, don't forget. And I was like, every morning I'm yelling, I'm screaming, I'm repeating myself. And then I get to work and I'm like, And I know how they show up at school because it's just constant. So we sit down and we have talks now, and it's like, look, this is what needs to be done in the mornings. I'm charging y'all with the responsibility. If you're not able to do it, you know, that's fine sometimes. But if you're like consistently not doing these things and mommy has to go back and do it, there's going to be some repercussions for you on your free time because you're going to have to make up for some of this stuff that mommy has to then take over for. Y'all are getting older and more mature. We can have these conversations. And now I just kind of start my mornings with meditation so that I can just breathe through that morning routine because it is so stressful. My girls are older now. They're 11 and 13, so they're getting better with it. My son, he's 9. And I mean, if I don't say brush your teeth, you know, at least 2 or 3 times, he's
not going to do it.
Yeah, so I threaten him with this. Well, if you can't do it, that's fine. But hygiene is non-negotiable in our house. So I will brush your teeth for you every morning and every night. And he's like, no. And my kids would be like,
there we go.
They literally would. They'd be like, let's get a dental chair in the house so I could be more comfortable.
No, my son hates it.
I was thinking about because I was having this conversation actually with my friend the other day, like, why do we feel so anxious of like, we have to get to this place and then we got a little bit to the ouchy root of it, which was once I finish my responsibilities, then I can have if I don't do it, I won't have time for me and I won't be able to care for my needs. And so if I rush through and do all of my responsibilities, then I know. But if I don't, if it takes too long, I'll run out of time, and then no one's looking out for me, and I don't get to care for me.
I'm gonna need a second with that one.
Yeah, that one just kind of hit.
Because for me, it's like I want to go fast so it gets done, so that I can take care of myself. Like I'm tired, or I need to go on a walk, or I need some water. I remember one time, this is an embarrassing story. I went with my friend on a trip. And we were unpacking, and I had a pee so bad that I was like dancing around, and she's like, do you have to use the restroom? And I was like, well, I can't do it until the suitcase is unpacked. And she was like, yes, you can. Go to the bathroom, you crazy person. Like, I was like, in my mind, finish what you have to do before you even allow yourself to go pee. Like, what the hell is that about?
That's a whole sermon. I think we take for granted. Well, I just think that we put ourselves so much on the back burner that we forget that our needs matter in the moments. And that's a perfect example and probably a really good segue for what I wanted to talk to you about with the work you do. This idea that I'm going to restrict myself, even to the point of not allowing myself to go to the restroom.
I feel like I'll be made fun of for a little while about that story.
But I've done it too. Yeah. I can relate.
I told her it's my reward. She goes, going to the bathroom is not a reward, Katie. And I was like, oops.
That's how we treat rest as a reward.
Right.
We have to earn it. That's how we sometimes treat food as a reward, especially if we're, engulfed and entrenched in diet culture. That's how we treat any form of self-care. It's like, after I do all these great things and accomplish all this and finish this long list or achieve this milestone, I will have earned this and I can celebrate with X, Y, and Z. And it has been so counterintuitive to me, but I have been trying to learn to celebrate along the way. Celebrate every little thing. Celebrate nothing. Just celebrate. Like, just be happy I'm alive and do the things I want to do and incorporate my needs into the daily routine. So it's not like when I get to the end of the day and I've done everything for everyone else, now I can take care of me. One, I don't want to mimic that behavior for my kids. Like, I don't want them to see that and then mimic it as they get older. I want them to we always say, like, I'm trying to create the life I don't need a vacation from. So the life I always dreamed of. So yeah, I'm working obviously, but I do Friday pool parties with my girlfriends. I will take a midday lunch at like a really fancy restaurant with a rooftop and just sit by myself like all the time instead of waiting until the weekend, waiting until the vacation, waiting until I achieve this business goal or that. So that whole process.
You have to have kids in order to be in this cycle. I think having children just exacerbates it.
Absolutely.
I was this way before children. Same. I was like, every weekend I would have a huge list. I would go from working like 50 hours in the week, and then I'd drop in, and I would like just, and then I was like, okay, I have 35 minutes, and I get to do what I want to do now. And it's like,
not what I have to do, that process.
But that
we all do it.
Yeah.
We all do it.
And it's praised.
It is praised.
It's praised.
Because you look like such a hard worker and
Right.
so accomplished. So yeah, back to, the whole rushing piece. But I want to know how making that transition in your personal life helps you, with clients, and then that whole behavior around restricting and holding back and saying, I'm not giving myself this, or that. I'm not listening to my body when I need to urinate. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
That, sort of infused into your work.
Totally. I think I have like 4 things that popped into my mind at once about that. But this idea that we deserve to honor our needs, like truly honor them, I think is foreign to a lot of my clients and my past self when I was struggling with food. And sometimes we operate out of just like basic necessity. Like I will have some clients say, well, I don't need, X. And I'm like, I would argue that you do, right? Because the goal of like true health and a truly healthy relationship with food is to really nourish yourself for the long haul. It's not just to do the bare minimum to get through the day. Because in theory, we could do the bare minimum, but we're going to end up with some negative health consequences, physical health and mental health consequences. And so I think that, I don't know. That restriction, it often isn't just in a vacuum within myself and my clients, right? It's restricting food, or it's restricting joy or rest. It's never just one.
Never.
So, but yeah, you're right. I do see a lot of the restrictive piece, and that's a really tough thing to work on for clients, right? That they almost are worthy of having enough food.
I say it goes back to worth. I feel like that's what we come to in almost every episode. It comes back to worth. Am I worth it? And I think I'm in a place now where I can say, yes, I'm absolutely worth it. That doesn't mean my behavior always is
lines up
demonstrating that. But I think the check-ins of asking yourself, like, am I worth this? Aren't I worth this? It's like, yeah, I'm worth going to the bathroom. I'm worth a nice dinner. I'm worth taking a nap. I'm worth,
yes,
because we are. And this we would tell our dear friend, like, you're the same way your friend stepped in and was like, you can go to the bathroom. Like, she's like, why are you dancing like that? It's like, what are you doing? So I think showing that compassion that we show to other people, just flipping it around and showing it to ourselves and being very unapologetic about it. But it is a process. It is a process.
I mean, it's to like understand. I was actually writing an email to our community this morning, and I just like paused for a while because I was like, I can conceptualize the word worthiness. It's different to embody it. Like, I think that that's actually a lifelong journey of continuously learning how to embody that. For me, I don't know if that work will end, but I think about what prevents me from embodying it. And I was thinking about this idea of like, my past experiences combined with my current perception of a situation, compounded with a pile of feelings all in a second.
It's a lot.
Yeah. And it's like, that is the unconsciousness.
Yes.
I have my lived experience that forms my current perception of any given circumstance that's even very small right in front of me, that then facilitate a feeling that then inflict a behavior. And it's like, that is the barrier to the worthiness, because I believe all of those things. It's not that it's true.
Correct.
It's that I believe it. And then I'm unconscious of it. And so I act from that space. And I'm like, that's why I can't access it all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that's the right analogy, but like I was thinking, why can't I just access this more frequently? And it's like, and then it speaks to your rushing. I'm just going, unconscious, unconscious. And I'm never, there's so much that comes from the pause.
Yeah. The pause.
Totally. Yeah. Slowing down for a second, whether that's in the day, when I had more time in my day, a lot of stuff came up for me. So now I understand that it's important to have, I go to a hot yoga studio and it's boiling in there, but I still go once a week because it's 1 hour where I have to be quiet. And I go to therapy for an hour where I have to be introspective, and it allows me to feel more caught up with things, rather than let it pass, you by. And I think a lot of people that struggle with this, and I'm assuming you too as well, maybe identify as helpers. I don't know.
Possibly. And I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right? Healthcare profession or very caring people. And I just think it's in our nature. I do think sometimes we're born with a good chunk of this, right? Just personality wise. And I think that's what's the most tough, because we're just, the immediate thought is to help others rather than to help ourselves,
Yeah. I mean, in developmental psychology, there is still the lifelong debate of nature versus nurture.
Totally.
It has to be both, though.
It has to
be
both.
Oh, 100%.
They can't conclude what is,
what has more. Yeah.
But it is fascinating to, it's like sometimes I have had my partner say, well, you're just really good at all that stuff. And I'm like, good at it or had a lot of training?
I know.
I was born with a label maker? I don't think so.
Well, right.
I might have been born with a label maker.
Came out with something extra. What's this label maker?
Oh my gosh.
It's like good at it or trained? It's like, I don't know.
Yeah. Forced by, right? Like, were you praised for doing those things? Or do you get this, a sense of accomplishment? I think that's where a lot of my stuff comes from.
Yep. Where you get that accomplishment.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay. I feel like this has been really, really. How are we good on time? Because I really want to ask about.
Go ahead. Okay. Go ahead. We're good. I mean, I don't know time, but go ahead.
Who knows? Because we're just talking. But I know you do a lot of work. You're talking about like your unconscious, like biases, things you're not aware. I know you do a lot of work in the world of like fat phobia, and people, don't. I've had very annoying debates online where people are like, "That's not a thing," and it's like, "Oh,
what?"
Okay. Well, I guess, okay, so you can't really argue with people like that. But no. I would love to know more about that work that you do. And then for people who maybe are very unclear on what fat phobia means, what it looks like, how it shows up, if you can share, a little bit about that as well.
Yeah. So yes, I do a lot of work with that. I think it stemmed from just the amazing growth that has come from, the nutrition and just health community with understanding some of the damage, a lot of the damage that has been done by our unconscious biases. And I think, like most people, we want to believe that we don't have them. Right. And I have realized we all do. It's just that, like, you got to take a step back and be like, crap, I definitely think that way, because like the nature versus nurture thing. I grew up in Los Angeles, California, where image and thinness and diets, like the land of fad diets, was there. And so that was literally forced upon me without me knowing. And I think by the time I got to, graduate school and started to do this work, I realized that I hadn't done a lot of the very conscious work to unlearn the unconscious biases that I had. And so as a thin-bodied provider and teacher, I try and use my privilege in that sense to educate other people and say, look, we all have these thoughts, myself included, and we got to unlearn these together. So some examples would be like an unconscious bias that I think a lot of people have is assuming that we can know the health of a person by looking at them, right? Looking at their body size. And I had that. I was like, yeah, I know if they're thin, then they're healthy, or if they're in a larger body, they're not healthy. And then my whole brain was blown up once I really realized that was not true.
So not true.
Right. But it's perpetuated by our Western, medical society. And I very much teach that to my students, right? That you cannot tell the health of a person by just what you see on the outside. I wish there was more training in medical schools, if I'm being completely honest, because doctors, I feel like this, no offense, there are amazing doctors out there that understand their biases. But just in med school, I mean, talking to my sister that's in a program right now, there's not nutrition taught, and there's a lot of, BMI this or weight loss will achieve this health goal, when it's just simply not supported by the literature. And it is just supported by, insurance companies that will pay out more for weight loss lectures. So, I guess all that to say, I think a lot of medical providers do not get the education that I think should be necessary to provide good care to people. So as a teacher, just, teaching a few students a semester, I try and put it out there so that they can spread the word, and I believe that some of them will become health providers themselves. And if not, even just creating more inclusive language, or not jumping to conclusions when you're in conversations with your friends or whatever, I think is impactful. So
this might be a silly question, but why would insurance companies want to perpetuate bad science? Like why would they want to do that? No, but how do they?
Yes.
Explain to me how that works. Because if I'm an insurance company, wouldn't my goal be to have the healthiest humans, so that way I don't have to pay out as much? And if I knew what contributed to the health of a human and I stayed on top of that, then I would, and on the latest research and mental health and all of that, then I knew all the things that contributed, and I wouldn't hone in on the thing that actually doesn't work.
You would think.
Because the drug companies are funding them?
Yeah. Yes.
Ring.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? It's like,
yes, I do.
Your goal to not use insurance, so if you're the insurance company?
But I do think the insurance in the United States it doesn't care about the health of us. It just cares about money, right? And I see this in a very concrete way, in the sense that a lot of insurance companies will not pay for preventative nutrition counseling, right? So if someone is teetering on this edge of, we could go down into a very severe eating disorder, in which that individual might need to step up to a higher level of care, which is $1,000+ a day for that insurance company. They would be willing to cover that, but not my, $100, $200, whatever sessions cost in a variety of states for an hour session, that in theory, after a few of those, you wouldn't have to go up to a higher level of care.
But that's what I mean. The logic isn't there. Like, it's in their best interest.
I know.
So tell me where this money, where do they go?
So it has more to do with the system. I think in an individual example, that would make sense. Like, we could pay this and not have to pay that. But with the system working in totality, there are more claims to be made if a person is sicker.
Yes.
And there's more co-pays to be collected, more impact to the system. So ultimately, there's more money to be earned.
Not just in the insurance side, but in the system as a whole.
The whole system. But the insurance companies, with some of these claims, like she says, they'll cover this $1,000 a day. Well, they also have a team of people working to deny these claims, right? Mm-hmm. So the more claims they deny, the more money they keep. So when the system is working efficiently on their end, what happens is there are more claims, there's more things they can deny, there are more services and additional costs and expenses, and it can drive the entire premiums up. So then you have people, who are relatively healthy who don't even utilize their benefits like that, but they're getting that money. Families are paying thousands of dollars a month just to have coverage, and nothing, never really having real claims. So ultimately, the sicker people are, the less people utilize their benefits, the less people are willing to fight when claims are denied. The companies just continue to grow. I mean, our insurance companies are Fortune 500. They are for-profit businesses.
Yes.
That's my point, is that wouldn't they make more money if there were less claims? And wouldn't they have less claims if they were on top of keeping people as healthy as possible?
I don't think so. I don't think they would make more money because they wouldn't be able to justify high premiums. You know what I mean? They wouldn't be able to justify you paying so much to have this insurance in case if the general trend was people were generally healthy and not utilizing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they would make up their money somewhere. And I think I don't know all the inner workings, but I think there are relationships between insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies.
Okay, well, that's where that makes sense to me.
There are definitely relationships
Because
between pharmaceuticals
I barely get
healthcare.
to ever file claims for my insurance.
Yeah.
My insurance is probably like $2,000 a month. And in order to even get one service covered for my older daughter, I have to meet a $7,000 deductible for her. So
oh my goodness.
Nothing really covered until I pay the $2,000 a month plus the $7,000 for the year to get something covered for her. Yeah. And so I'm like, I'm already doing that. They're already making a ton of money. They are. So it has to be the pharmaceutical thing then, because that's like, otherwise it's like just bad math. I'm like, who's in charge of the math over there?
Who's in charge of the math?
Because like people will still pay to have catastrophic insurance to make sure if they needed surgery or something.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. It just, to me, it's like the more claims, the more people they have to hire. Like the infrastructure of that business model, it's not resonating with me. So it has to be something else. It's got to be pharmaceutical then.
I'm sure it's probably a lot of contributors we're unaware of.
They're private organizations.
Who would tell us?
They can take money whenever
I know.
whoever they want, right? These are private organizations.
Yeah, they can take.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, and if you're looking at another thing I teach about is being a critical consumer of media, and you can see like a reputable source, maybe in, I don't know if it's the New York Times, for example, they're interviewing people in support of let's say a weight loss drug, because that is what is prevalent right now. If you go down, and then you see in the tiniest print ever, right, that they were supported by this drug company, people aren't going down there to read that. They're saying, oh, this doctor supports this, and then that is, then that must be true, right? And so I do think that there are many ties with pharmaceutical companies that we're not, whether it's with insurance or other ways, they're there for sure.
I think the biggest part is probably that it's just privately run organizations that where you have like basically when you're privately run like that, the accountability factor is very low. It's like that's where we're not really executing our rights as citizens to be able to vote and to be able to create. But like that's like anyway.
Yeah. Right.
That's the whole thing. Well, that's a rabbit hole.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, it's been such a pleasure connecting with you today. We've had so many different wonderful areas of conversation. And before we end the episode, I'd love for you to let people know where they can find you and connect with you.
Sure. My website is connierd.com. And that's a way that you can see which states I could take insurance in for individual nutrition counseling, see other stuff I'm up to. I am launching an e-course around the holidays that sort of takes the most important lessons from my college courses that I've taught for years, condensed into something very accessible for people who, would like credible nutrition information, but have not had the chance to either enroll in a college course or receive accurate information from their healthcare providers. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in that, just keep tabs. And then my social media is Constantly Eating, like my name, Constance, and then Lee Eating, like I'm constantly eating. Anyways, you probably get it. So that's, I will post that. Fun. Yes, we do love the fun. So that's where you can find me. And yeah, I took a little breather off of social for about a year there. But I am back and I am trying to get re-engaged in a way that doesn't take away from my mental health.
That balance.
Very hard.
Thank you so much, Connie. It's been such a joy speaking with you, and we'll put that info in the show notes. And thank you to our listeners. We will see you next week for the next episode. Bye.
Thank you.